Good morning, everybody. Oh, I finally got to sleep in a little bit. Dave has a question. Epistemology class starts on Monday. I might do a recorded video just to guide you through the Canvas. Although, Dave, you're familiar somewhat with Canvas from our previous class. But for those students who have joined, just to kind of how to navigate it. And then Monday, I'll open up an assignment and the check-in for those of you who are doing the week by week. Remember, I'm extending. I'm leaving a few days for those who want to sign up for the course. We'll still have open enrollment. Let me put a link in there. The chat here. Enrollment. I'm extending enrollment, open enrollment. So please tell your friends if they're interested. There's payment plans. And it is a wonderful class. It's one of the best ones, philosophy classes you could take, especially preparing. I think even for understanding Orthodox theology, to have a good foundation in epistemology and the theory of knowledge and how that works, how we justify the Orthodox faith and other things. So it will be very practical. Ankle is healing well. I'm praying that it'll continue to. I was doing really good at taking a lot of collagen. I need to get some more collagen in. No pain with the ankle. Occasionally I can feel the metal plates and stuff and some discomfort and swelling. What I'm really praying for is that it heals well enough that by the 8th, just less than a week from now, they're going to take off the cast and see, probably do an x-ray and then see if it's healed well enough to put me into a walking boot. And I'm a little bit nervous because I've tried to not stand on it, but put a little pressure. I can feel that it hurts. So I've got a week basically to heal to the point where they believe that I could actually put pressure and walk on it. So I don't know. We don't know if it's too soon but I can tell you that what is strange is it feels so good that I forget times. I have to kind of catch myself. There's times I want to just get up and walk and do something and then realize, oh gosh, I can't do that yet. I've got to grab my crutches. And that's good and bad news. I just got to be careful. But that my mind's already going into it doesn't hurt, and get up and stand up and walk, but I have to catch myself. So let me read some super chats. Dave Flippian, thank you so much. Donates $10. Also, don't forget, we have 41 days until the MontaNIKA Conference, which will be the best one yet. Don't procrastinate. Tickets will sell out. And don't say to yourself, I'll go next year, because what if there isn't a next year? Redeem the time, as St. Paul says. And again, take that. All right. Let's see. Fully convinced of the truth of Orthodoxy, how can I know or feel in my heart of the very being to be true? It helps. I haven't yet. Yeah, you gotta attend Divine Liturgy. I'd say similar to the way that you know and trust people. You enter into, again, there's kind of factual stuff that you can study and know about a person or something like that. That kind of points you in the right direction. You may read a person's CV or resume, articles about, news clips or something about a person, but you never really know the person. It kind of guides you in the right way, and you're convinced, hey, I think this person is such and such a person. I think that this is blah, blah, blah. We do that, right? But ultimately to know, like what you're saying in your heart, means you go from the propositional clues that are in the mind, the kind of factual evidence and stuff like that, to an incarnational face-to-face relationship with somebody. And then it becomes incarnate, and you begin to experience and go through things. When you spend time with somebody, you enter into a relationship, and that's by the way in which Scripture says that we know it's concrete. It's it's not abstract. It's an incarnational kind of experience, and this is the same thing that you have to do with Orthodoxy. Yes, the fathers and the arguments and the propositions and the history and these things are factual evidence that points you in the right direction to call you to come taste and see that the Lord is good in the divine service. And then as you spend time in there, you change. You incarnate the knowledge of God in His church. And for example, if I read to you, to even understand Scripture properly, it's in the context of the liturgy. The priest reads, let me see, where is... Before the reading of the gospel, illumine our hearts, O Master, who lovest mankind with thy pure light of thy divine knowledge. Open the eyes of our mind. That's what you're talking about. That's the prayer you want. Open the eyes of my mind to the understanding of the gospel teachings. And plant also in us the fear of thy blessed commandments, that trampling down all carnal desires, we may enter upon a spiritual manner of living, both thinking and doing such things that are well-pleasing unto thee. For thou art the illumination of our souls and bodies, O Christ our God, and unto thee do we send up glory together with thy Father, who is from everlasting, thine all holy, good, and life-giving Spirit, now and ever into the ages of ages. Amen. So that's why outside of the church, in Protestant and there's an inability to fully grasp what even Scripture means. The truths that are hidden and contained within the Scriptures. It talks about in Revelation, who can open the scrolls? Nobody can. And then only the Lamb. But the Lamb is present, i.e. Jesus Christ, and the calling of the Holy Spirit to open the eyes of thy mind and understanding, that we understand properly the Holy Scripture and the truth contained in the Holy Orthodox Church. And that's why, outside of the church, we might accidentally get things correct from reading the Bible, but it's accidental, and oftentimes the reason why we miss the truth, we get the incorrect understanding of Scripture and the gospel and the entire apostolic deposit of faith, is twofold. As it says, we don't have this. A person outside does not have the divine liturgy, in which the Holy Spirit is called down and made present and illumines, where Christ opens our minds to the understanding of the gospel, its teachings. We also, through our own sins, that's why we pray, trampling down all carnal desires. And then notice, how do we understand this? By entering into a spiritual manner of living. So not just by thinking, but what does it say? Both thinking and doing. That's why I said to know the truth is to act and to do. To think, to bring the thinking into the action, which the center and the context of that is the liturgical life of the church. And that's, you begin to, somebody asked me, do you ever have doubts about God, Orthodox? It's like, no, because it's no longer dependent on me. And I'm not leaning on my own understanding. You know, when I was a Protestant, all of that depended on if I formulated and interpreted things correctly. On my system, my autonomous system that I kind of built, and I was wrong about a lot of stuff. And so once I entered into incarnationally, baptized, illumined by the Holy Spirit, and lived both in thinking and doing in liturgically within the church, through the lives of the saints, the sacraments, through prayers and almsgiving, through confession, partaking of the Eucharist, for the reading of Scripture and the Psalms and the epistles in the divine liturgy. Of course I know God and the saints. Of course I know there's not a single doubt, and it's no longer dependent on my fallible kind of understanding systems and propositions that I make. And so, no, I don't have never had any doubts once when I first came in, I was, there were some issues that kind of seemed weird or something like that. I assented to them, and I'm like, I believe in the church, but like, I don't get it. I feel weird about this. But I kind of had, a fundamental trust that I'm like, I'm sure I'll find out the answer. It'll be revealed to me. Feeling the Wolf donates £2. Thank you so much. Let me see if there's any other. All right. Other news, questions? Twitter X was a day yesterday. A lot of weird stuff going on. Oh man, there was something right. Don't you hate when it refreshes? I just saw something I wanted to read, and then it refreshed it, and I lost it. Let me make an announcement real quick. There is one other announcement. My godson's coming down from Kalispell, so I rescheduled the catechesis program that would have been on YouTube for tonight, in which we're returning back to Father Pomazanski's Orthodox Dogmatic Theology. We're pushing that out until tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard. We're picking up with Chapter 2, the Dogma of the Holy Trinity. Pages, if you want to read ahead of time for the class, it's both a the class is Trinitarian itself. It's for catechumens. It's for Orthodox that are continuing their education, because we want to have refreshers and continuing education as we go through the faith, even when we're baptized, and also inquires. But if you read page 77 to 87, that's the first part of chapter 2, Dogmatic Theology. We'll pick up on that. And here is the link for that for tomorrow. There. I just lost my thought. There was something I was going to say about that. Oh, I remember. Okay, so I keep meaning to talk about this because we've been reading the Gospel of John, and 3 days ago there was a really interesting gospel in John, a passage in John that John 5:17 through 24. And I was just thinking about the Unitarians, right, that do not believe in the Trinity, which is interesting because we'll be talking about the Holy Trinity. And the fact that, to me, it's very clear in Orthodox that the Trinity is throughout both the Old Testament and the New Testament. And you get Muslims, Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, and the Unitarians going, Jesus never claimed to be God. And they'll reinterpret passages that when Christ says, the Father and I are one. Oh, well, that's one in purpose, you see. Oh, isn't that interesting? So you stack up all these verses, right? But so maybe if there was one verse, maybe. Okay, but when you add it together, you have a case that's like clearly you can't argue your way through that. But I was noticing a couple different things. First of all, in Scripture, it says, and they worshipped him. After and all the gospel, a lot of the gospel readings at the end, and they worshipped him. Worship is due to God alone. So clearly, Scripture is talking about he is God. Only God can be worshipped. But let's go to John. John 5:18. Therefore the Jews sought the more to kill him, because he not only had broken the Sabbath. And I've asked this question too. Why? What does it matter with you guys? Why do you think the Jews, what is blasphemy? Claiming equality with God. So it wasn't that they perceived that he just broke the Sabbath. He was doing work and miracles on the Sabbath. He forgives sins, and they call him out. Only God can do that. What does he do? Christ double downs and raises people from the dead, forgives the sins, right? And so it's very clear through reading the Gospels, he's claiming through word and action to be God, especially in light of when the Jews accuse him of only God can do this, and he's like, yes, exactly. So how do you get around that? But then in 18, it says, therefore the Jews sought the more to kill him, because not only had he broken the Sabbath, but he also said that God was his Father, making himself equal with God. There you cannot get around. It's not saying one in purpose. What does it mean to have equality with God? The Jews clearly understood. He's claiming to be one of essence, right? The quality with the Father. Keep this in mind too, that do you have a different nature than your Father? If your Father has the nature of a human being, if you say, I am my Father's son, you're claiming what? Equality of essence. Christ, it says right there in the Gospel of John, he claimed he was his Father's son. If the Father has the divine essence, then they knew, and you should know, all you Unitarians out there, he's claiming to have the same essence. A son isn't a different species, an essence, from the Father. How can stuff so clearly be misinterpreted? Because they're outside the faith. Because they suppress the knowledge of God. They reinterpret all these things. One of the things that came up yesterday was the call no man father. And kicked off a dumpster fire that I did not know would kick a hornet's nest on. I thought it'd maybe obviously get a reaction from some people. But one of the things that we notice with a lot of heresies, almost all heresies or even philosophical problems, come down to semantics and semantic and logical fallacies of word concept fallacy, and that words only have one meaning. There's no nuance, no context, etc. Also, I would say and it's not all Protestants. I was a Lutheran. I had no this is what's so crazy is that why as a Protestant that was really clear to me that what the passage call no man father. But it's usually non-denominational evangelicals. And one of the things that I identified too, this is Matthew 23:9. Let's open our Bibles to. It's not only the fallacy, word concept fallacy, or fallacy that words only have one meaning. Also, it's contextonomy is the fallacy, the practice of quoting out of context is another. But I'd also say the fallacy of accident. The fallacy of accident is where you take a general rule and you apply it to cases that it wasn't intended. And that could come from those and occur because of those two prior fallacies. But if we look at Matthew 23:9. Let's read the before. Let's avoid the fallacy of contextonomy and put it into its context. Why is Jesus saying what he's saying, and who is he saying it to? Then Jesus spoke to the multitudes and to his disciples, saying, the scribes and the Pharisees sit in the seat of Moses, so they have the authority. Is what he's saying. And Christ actually said that. Here's another thing evangelicals get wrong. They think, oh, you're supposed to, tradition's bad, and you're not supposed to have ceremonies and stuff like. Well, Christ actually says, follow them. They have the authority. Therefore, whatever they tell you, observe. That observe and do, but do not do according to their works. Do not follow their hypocrisy. For they say and do not do. For they bind heavy burdens, hard to bear, and lay them on men's shoulders. But they themselves will not move them one of their fingers. But all their works they do to be seen by men. They make their phylacteries broad and enlarge the borders of their garments. They love the best places at the feast, the best seats in synagogues, greeting them in the marketplace, and to be called by men, Rabbi, Rabbi. But do not be called Rabbi. For one is your teacher, the Christ, and you are all brethren. Do not call anyone on earth your father, for only one is your Father who is in heaven. And do not be called teachers, for one is your teacher, is Christ. But he who is greatest among you shall be your servant, and he who exalts himself shall be humbled, and he who humbles himself shall be exalted. All right, so the context of that is very clear. The Pharisees were attempting to replace themselves with God, to be ultimate teacher. So notice the problem with the Protestant evangelical call no man father is they only care about the word. And that has to be applied everywhere in all cases at all times. Which is not how life or anything usually works. The context reveals, yeah, but what does that word mean? Father can mean different things. Clearly in that case, father means, and teacher, ultimate father, right? Father, the patriarch, the head of the universe. Call no one the head of the... Man are not the head of the universe, and they can't replace God. Is ultimate teacher, is ultimate father. That's clearly what it means. So that word father and teacher has that context and is given that meaning. Not any father or any teacher. And they ignore the teacher part. Like, you stop going to school because, oh, well, there's a teacher. We can't send our kids to school because the Bible says called no one a teacher, and those are teachers. So, see how ridiculous this is? Furthermore, if it's all about the word and not the meaning, my point, one second, is the English word's not even in the Bible, which is Greek. Pater, Abba, right, and the Greek word's actually pater, is the only thing that's used in the Bible. So, padre, priot, whatever other word, they're not this. Those are different words in different languages, although they may have the same meaning. So I made a tweet illustrating, as a kind of reductio, the absurdity of this low IQ reasoning from certain evangelicals. So, if it's all about the word and not the meaning, the word father isn't in there. You could translate it, but a translated English word is not the same word as the Greek word. It's the same meaning. But wait a minute. You ignore meaning. It's all about the word. What the word's there, you can't. And so I made this point. Well, then most people, because they're not Greeks, aren't calling the priest pater. The declension's wrong here. I just pulled it from the verses to call no man father in the sense of, what is that? It's genitive, I think. It's because somebody called me out. They're like, that's what they're... I'm like, okay, I just copied out of I know I put it later in here, the actual nominative, and the people lost their mind. First of all, they couldn't get it, what I was saying. So I'd say, yes, my point exactly. If it's all about the word and not the meaning, then because the word father, an English word, isn't actually in the Bible, then there shouldn't be a problem calling your priest father. Because it doesn't say actually in there, call no man father. It's the translation of the Greek word. And you only think the words matter and not meanings. So this... But then came the... Interesting enough that the whole verse is about Pharisees. Fake moral piety signalers. And what do? They actually come out and accuse me. Oh, it's so bad that you're calling... It's unbecoming of a deacon to call people low IQ. Well, first of all, what did we talk about yesterday? Did I mention anybody's particular name is being low IQ? I didn't even call all evangelicals low IQ. The low IQ evangelicals are the ones that interpret that. I'm not saying every evangelical even has a problem with calling a priest a father. There are some. That is unintelligent behavior and reasoning, or lack thereof. What is wrong with saying that? Identifying there is a real phenomenal group of people, and I haven't named any specific names, that have an ill logic and don't reason correctly about. And I'm exposing it. It's wrong. So I'm the bad guy for calling out error. And of course, the Pharisees, the heretics, and the fake moral piety and dark triad trait dudes come out and say, well, this isn't, how is this winning people over to? Well, first of all, notice the confusion of categories. Does a person take the same role and do the same things everywhere at all times? When one goes to work, are they a parent? When one feeds the homeless, are they a soldier? When one does apologetics and defends the faith, demolishing every argument and pretension that sets itself up against the kingdom, and we make every thought obedient to Christ, as St. Paul says, are we proselytizing? We're destroying strongholds and arguments. That's not evangelizing per se. Now, it may have the doctrine of what we call in ethics double effect. The intention is to destroy falsehoods, to bring darkness into light, to shame and insult erroneous, false, and ridiculous ideas, to answer the fool according to his folly. I know that when I visit the sick, the hungry, the poor, when I proselytize, when I counsel, I'm not doing debate and apologetics. When somebody's outside the faith and they're suffering because they lost a loved one, I'm not doing debate and apologetics. What is the matter with you people? This is apologetic. Quit confusing categories. Apologetics and debate are not niceties. It isn't some postmodern relativistic, well, we're just gentle and kind and just have to tell people whatever they want to hear in the tone that they want. No. These are ridiculous ideas and roads to perdition. And they're dangerous, and they should be shamed and called out. That doesn't make me the bad guy. And second of all, it works. We have a guy on here saying, yeah, good advertisement for Orthodoxy. Way to win people over. But it does. Jay and myself and others wouldn't be doing the type of rigor and polemics and debate and apologetics if it didn't work. So why is this so frustrating? Because it's emotional manipulation. It's not about truth. It's not about arguments. It's not even about love. It's about power. And they're using emotional guilt. Oh, you're mean and you shouldn't. How unbecoming of a deacon to call out error and call that there's unintelligent behavior in the world. How is that going to... You don't care about these people. You don't care about me, and you don't care about the truth. What you're trying to do is to emotionally guilt trip me because you're insecure, you hate yourself, the world, you hate truth, and you want to win. You want to be seen. You want to get the upper hand. And it's interesting because when I was in seminary and before being ordained, I had to go through a state certified psychological exam. It was really kind of interesting because it gives you, like at the end, kind of a psychological profile. And I saw it and I'm like, yeah, that checks out. And one of the things it says is, because of the type of character I am, does not do well being micromanaged and emotionally manipulated. I hate it. And so the reason why it's irritating to me, and I don't have time for this, and I usually block these people, is because I can see through it. I've done apologetics and I've been clergy long enough to see the fake piety and emotional manipulation and guilt tripping. And I'm not going to have it. I won't let somebody do that, manipulate me. And so this is what we get. And we have an article that we can kind of go through. So they never give any arguments. It's all about tone policing. And it's a psychological report. I find it offensive. Well, that doesn't matter. The truth is offensive. God says, does this offend you? What about St. John Chrysostom? We must not mind insulting men if by respecting them we offend God. Isn't that the truth of it? Now, I'm not saying to be purposely offensive. I'm saying to weigh this and say, well, look, part of apologetics and the rhetoric and polemics of crushing and demolishing heresies and every argument that sets itself up against the kingdom is offensive. To say you're wrong, this is stupid. It's dangerous. It's illogical. It's low IQ, is offensive. Truth is exclusive, not inclusive. And to be told that you're wrong, or that a group is wrong, is offensive. But truth is more important. So if you sacrifice God's truth because you want to please men rather than God, it's a sin. St. John Chrysostom pointing this out. Christ calls out the Pharisees. He does not use these polemics and harshness against those who have an open heart, who are willing to be instructed, who are repentant. The woman at the well. Somebody was saying, like, well, do you do this? Do you incur, like, is the woman at the well, the rich young ruler, the Zacchaeus, are they dark? I'm like, no, they're all repentant. Now, it's unfortunate with the rich young ruler. He was repentive, but he was just too attached to his wealth to let that go. But he wasn't a dark triad trait, fake moral piety signaler. He wasn't a Pharisee. And so, what did it say in today's gospel? At the end, in John 6:2, was it 6:2 or was it the one I was? No, it was the Matthew, right? Getting all my gospels mixed up here. Was it? Was it 23? Verse 12. And whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. That's what we're doing. The sort of rhetoric and polemics and the harshness is for the proud, for the Pharisees. They're to be humbled. Not for the humble and the repentant. So I think that's really something important to point out. Okay. So Mox Estonia, 1999, thank you. Have you seen Albrecht's argument that because St. Palamas' teaching on the essence energies are binding via sin to St. Palamas' letter where he says Muslims have reverence of God is basically no. Jeez, no, that's a bad argument. Also, remember this came up. This came up in a previous stream. A person's misunderstanding of councils and synods. Not everything in a council or synod is dogma. Every acts of the council are not. Every evidence or letter entered in is not. But the dogma, and the dogma is not even seen in light of one council, but the kataholos, the whole. So again, I would say, first of all, that's taken out of context, like they always do. Quote mine, and the fallacy of contextology is his. And then furthermore, is to treat every individual part as if it's binding and dogmatic, and it's not. That's not how Orthodoxy works. So what does he do? He has a prior presupposition, a papist presupposition, that he forces onto a system that doesn't have that. Roman Catholics always have this. Unity can only mean one thing, and be seen in one way, the papal way, and therefore you don't have unity because your system, well, unity looks different in our system. Words mean something different in each system. So I would call him out on that. Oh, but you have problems in Orthodoxy too. Problems mean something different in different systems. It's fundamentally contradictory in the papal system. It isn't in Orthodoxy because we have autocephalous in synodality. Any bishop can defect and err. Any part, it could be fallible and erroneous. Okay? We're kataholos, we're synodal, we're autocephalous. So we don't have the same system. Yeah, a bishop can err and say wrong. Even a saint can say something wrong. Oh no, but you have to follow the rule, my arbitrary rules that I made up for your system that your system doesn't hold. That's basically their fallacy. Okay, let's see if there's any other super chats I want to read out. I think I do. Olav donates. By the way, where is my Saint Olav? Hey, sweetheart, could you grab my Saint Olav icon? Because Olav donates $5. I want to bring one of my favorite saints out. Greetings, Father. How are we to regard past absolved sins, those confessed in remission through Holy Communion? Are we still kept accountable for them? Are we forgetting to remember them? Thank you. Saint Olav. There we go. Olav. There's our saint right there. King Olaf. Good question. Now, if they're absolved, they're absolved. Clearly, we're not legalists and be like, why didn't, and autistic about, why didn't name every single one? Remember, God sees the heart. Are you hiding sins? Well, I don't want to mention them. Or are you forgetting them? In the prayer of absolution, for those mentioned and not mentioned due to ignorance, forgetfulness, that we're absolved of those. But if you're purposely hiding, that's an issue of the heart. And so, obviously, those you'll carry those with you. All right, let's see. There's another super chat. Theocracy Enjoyer donates $2. Best way to refute Catholic and Orthodox unions. I know that often it stems from their weak view of ecclesiology, but I'm looking at something to truly erode papal supremacy beyond Michael Welton's two paths. Well, I think, first of all, you go to basically things that would be fundamentally at a systemic level contradictory. So dogmas can't change. And then they change in Roman Catholicism. Saints that are condemned as heretics that are now allowed by uniates to... That's a dogmatic issue. Issues of faith and morals that are not supposed... They're supposed to be binding and dogmatic and can't change. That change. No salvation outside of the Roman Catholic Church, and now salvation's allowed. So all these different things are fundamental. And remember, in Orthodoxy, an error from a bishop isn't systemically and fundamentally contradictory in the system. Because we believe any one part can err. But in terms, once you put everything into the papacy, right, and define that in terms the dogma that can't change, then when it does change, and it has, then obviously that's a fundamental contradiction in the system. The fact that it's also... The church, the Roman Catholic Church, looks nothing like the first millennium. I'm trying to think of all like some really kind of general, easy arguments. The indefectibility, that there's this kind of doctrine that a pope cannot actually be a heretic and defect, yet they are heretical. Non-falsificationism is another defeater. So I would say all three of those. Also, that it doesn't provide the certitude that it claims to do. Yeah. All right, let's see. Theocracy enjoyed another $1. Any websites, articles, got questions related to papal supremacy? I would go to Ubi. Also, the other thing too is that, let me see, I do have something. I have a couple notes on here I'd like to read to you on this. Number one, there's insufficient evidence for Vatican I notion of papal supremacy. Number two, Matthew 16:18 does not support papal supremacy. Even if we grant that Peter is the rock, and we can go either way, that's either his confession or that's a far stretch from supremacy, even if it's primacy. Number three, the unity of Rome is only by name. So I brought this up like, oh, they promise unity, and there is no unity, despite their claims. They criticize us for being divided along national and jurisdictional lines, i.e. our autocephaly, yet they're not united liturgically, ethnically, nationally, theologically, in terms of spiritual practices. They have 23 different rites. You go, yeah, but they're all under the Pope. Well, it's a superficial unity that's not a unity. A unity that's not a unity, in unity by name only. That's an excellent critique and refutation of papism. Number 6, the Council of Lyons makes the Filioque dogmatic. Rejection of Roman Catholic dogma puts one outside of the Roman Catholic Church. St. Gregory Palamas and the Palamite councils reject the Filioque. Blackernay condemns the Filioque. And St. Gregory, by the Roman standards, is a heretic outside the Roman Church. But now what? Dogma changes. The thing that can't change it in Rome changes. And now they acknowledge St. Gregory Palamas as a saint. See the unionism proves Roman Catholicism false and Orthodoxy true. There are councils. They say basically the only councils can only be called by the Pope, but their councils are called apart from the Pope. There's also the indefectibility of the papacy that I mentioned. Doctrinal inconsistencies with history, multiple conflicting theological schools, papal forgeries created to attempt to support papal supremacy. That's an argument again. 6, non-exclusivist ecclesiology. Now that's changed, right? It was exclusive, now it's inclusive. You can have these different things. So I've changed that. A non-falsification principle, where the papal supremacy can and does overrule previous supreme judgments. Fundamentally systemic contradiction. Does not live up, the system of papism does not live up to the standards and promises that it of epistemic certitude on faith and morals. They change their position on that all the time while they criticize, well, you guys have nothing, you have no dogma on on contraception. Yeah, we do. It's just not the way that you define it. And guess what? You changed on that. Oh, you allow divorce. We don't allow. There's no right of divorce. We don't allow right. We apply economia and realize it's a sin. Okay, but Saint Basil and your own saints allow for it that you accept it. So you change your position on that. Dictatus Papae, Pope calls him, can be judged by no one, yet they judge the Pope. And guess what? They're confused also, or they're lying. Because, oh, well, that's not ex cathedra. But that applies to ordinary magisterium too. You can't actually judge. And that relates to the problem of indefectibility. Conflicting historical magisteriums on the same issues is a fundamentally contradictory thing in papism. The development of doctrine is another refutation, which also relates to the non-falsifiable. Well, it's development, you see. So there's no way to actually falsify anything because they keep putting in these ad hoc rescues and made the whole system unfalsifiable. That itself makes it false. Look at the Lateran Council 649. The Sixth Ecumenical Council does not cite the Lateran Council. If all that was needed was a pope, then they'd have no need for the Sixth Ecumenical Council, since the Pope resolved all those issues in the Lateran Council. Pope Vigilius is another refutation. The Fifth Ecumenical Council is shown to actually be over and above the Pope. The Pope did not originally agree with it, and he was made to submit to it. That refutes papism right there. Saint Valitios dies outside of communion with Rome, but now he's a saint, so a contradiction. Heretics and councils called outside of Rome that correctly taught the Trinity, but then Rome accepts them retrospectively. That's another refutation. St. Basil's letter, 66 or 69, to Athanasius of Alexandria, shows that there was no Vatican I idea in the first millennium, and because he calls and complains Rome is useless. So obviously it shows, because they're saying that didn't exist, right? There was no mindset of that. It's like, well, it is. Like, we find saints actually saying that we don't need Rome. In fact, Rome in these issues is useless. The whole idea that the Petrine See can only be limited to Rome forever and always is false. There are 3 Petrine Sees: Antioch, Alexandria, and Rome. Pope St. Gregory even acknowledges that. And also, first and foremost, the See of St. Peter is Antioch prior to him establishing Rome. So if you want to follow Peter and the See of Peter, it's actually Antioch. He sat in Antioch for 7 years. The Chieri document in Alexandria, a document, now makes a reversal on dogma and admits Orthodox synodality is correct. Another contradiction. All of those. I think that's a good kind of summary of and the generalities of the errors and fundamental contradictions of Rome. Now, keep in mind, they'll try to drag you down into endless quotes and rearranging quotes and making a case. I don't have the best memory on history and everything. I don't need to go to those. I stay at the generality. Yeah, but those are epistemic-ish principles that I can clearly see. So it's a red herring to get down lost like Ybarra and Albright get into my... I'm not even going to go there. Because those are those are still issues. There's nothing you can do in terms of quotes to refute those. So stay at those general epistemic principles and see... and avoid the kind of red herrings of going into quote mines and stuff like that, because it confuses people. It makes it look like it's semantic sorcery. That's how people go like, "Whoa, really sounds a good case." It's like, yeah, but you just ignored all the. I mean, how many points did I give? 14 points that are like fundamental refutations of Rome. You lost track of the main points because you got dragged down into the insignificant details of quote mining. So Locksmith donates $9.99. Is St. Basil 360 genuine? Yeah. So what do? Whoa, that's a fundamental refutation of my position. Then I'll just do an ad hoc rescue, or what I call ad hoc minusification. Well, I just minus it out. Anything. So that's another part of the non-falsifiable. Everything's evidence for my position. Nothing can be evidence against it. Because anything that's evidence against it, I just minus out. Well, that must be a forgery. I don't accept that. That's fake news, right? Do you see what the problem is? So it is genuine. Sarah from Hamilton's correct on that. So good questions. Thank you, Noah Strong. I think that's correct. Yeah, there's not saying it's the same God. That's what I'm saying. They take it out of that's what they do. It's a secular mindset, the same way that you would write a paper in college. You already have your thesis. And then you go and quote mine all the books and the scholars to support your position, and you could take it out of context and do whatever you want. Don't look over here. Look here at the system I'm building. And that's what they do. It's the same as the Orientals quoting St. Cyril, absolutely. I'm just ignoring the later Cyril because obviously that contradicts my system. That itself is a refutation. That's all I need to hear from you guys. I don't need to get bogged down into the details. Yeah, sophistic casuistry. That's exactly what it is. All right, other questions? When's Cotel going on? Patrick? YouTube. Is it on Jim Bob? Come on, I'm gonna look. Church of Eternal Logos. I don't see it. Is it in live? What are you talking about, man? Hey, man. Where is it? I don't even see. Where is Cotel's premiere? Are you gaslighting me? Because I can't find it. I don't see any mention of a premiere. Oh, maybe. Yeah, that's right. Very good. Patrick, you in? Somebody said they'd never heard of Dark Triad before. Do you want to do a review on Dark Triad? What say you? What do you guys want to do next? What topics do you want to cover? Oh, this is cool. Parishioner sent a picture of me. Must be Holy Friday or Holy Saturday in my wheelchair. What say you? What do you want to do? We just finished up my last lecture on my last lectures at Carroll College, both for the logic class and intro to philosophy. And so logic class, there were a few freshmen. It's usually sophomores and juniors. They might have had another philosophy class, but certainly the introduction to philosophy is very beginner friendly. All of those students are freshmen. It's crazy to see like where people are at. You just forget in the mindset and being so new, at 17, 18 years old. But yeah, that course is definitely very beginner friendly. How would you respond to Alex Mappa when he calls precept shifting the burden fallacy? I would say, well, I've never avoided the burden. That doesn't mean that... Again, part of what these people think is that the argument is only a reductio and possibility of the contrary disjunctive. Now, that's sufficient. And people never get this. That if you really do get all the options down, like, for example, the one example that I always use is there's only two options, and one of those options can be broken into two, concerning triangles. Triangles angles either add up to 180 degrees or they don't. So let's look at, assume for the sake of the argument, that they don't. What are the options? It's either greater or less. And there's a proof for that. That if that leads to a contradiction, and it does, in both situations where you assume that the angles are greater and that they're less, then it shows that by impossibility contrary, the angles of a triangle must equal 180 degrees. And that's a sufficient proof. I don't need a positive. I could provide a positive count of how they, but that's actually sufficient. So I'd say the tag certainly does that. And yeah, you do have to answer. But if I really do, so it's not a burden of proof, switching the burden of proof. It's that the other options are impossible. They're defeaters for knowledge. That alone is sufficient to show that, well, the only other possibility would have to be orthodoxy. So part of Malpass's problem too is he's still stuck on autonomous epistemology. And I'll quote it over and again. Russ Mannion's quote, in some sense, it's not an argument. It's not a burden of proof or any of this stuff. It's what Russ Mannion points out in one of his papers. There is no purely rational proof or argument for theism. There's only a theistic account of rationality. Okay, so by impossibility of the contrary, like where are you going to go? I don't have to prove anything by your arbitrary standards that were just shown to be contradictory and impossible. There's only one other story. Now, there is an account there's the positive account, which is icing on the cake, since it was already a sufficient condition to show that, well, if none of the others could be true, then the only alternative is the only thing that could be true, if anything is true. But orthodoxy does account. It has explanatory power. It has justificatory power. It has the kind of necessary conditions that everybody wants and requires. It has the sort of level of coherence that everybody wants and nobody else can put. So what's the problem, Malpass? I don't like it. Yeah, a good point. Noah, there's a misunderstanding of tag. Tag was never saying X is true because it hasn't been proven to be false. The impossibility of it being proven false. Again, either there's nothing and there's no truth and no knowledge, or it's the only way. So it's not, nobody's proven it to be false yet. That would be an argument from ignorance. Yeah, good point. Best resource study mono and diaphysitum. Join the Discord. We have I think a PDF bank, and David and I own the Orthodox Discord server once it was handed over from Jay to us, and David has some great notes in there. David himself and Kai and Jay also have great videos. Orthodox Shahada, so all those I'd recommend. They work so hard. I mean, the truth of tag is that they're so obsessed. Why are they so obsessed and so perturbed? Why is there whole cults that are forming? Anti-tag cults. Doesn't that actually say something about, as evidence of the truth of tag? I'll show you exactly how. You prove there's limited options. You reduce the multiplicities to more fundamental principles. That's all you have to do. And there's only so many. It's either autonomous or theonomous. So autonomous, even allowing that God exists, right? You put every single thing that you could possibly imagine into those categories. There's open. All right, let's look at this. I'll show you how you do this. So let's start here. So first is to understand, obviously this is just showing you the general structure, right, of how a transcendental deduction works. Yes, I get it. You have to show that God isn't necessary and what that actually means. But you first have to understand the kind of transcendental deduction. You can put it in different forms. I put it in a modus ponens. If y, then x, y, therefore x. If knowledge exists, and what is a transcendental argument? It takes some accepted issue or fact about the world, whether it's experience or knowledge, and then it seeks to find what the logical necessary conditions for that is. And so that sort of deduction can be applied to the issue with God and knowledge. So if you do accept that knowledge exists, the first premise, if knowledge exists, then God exists. Knowledge does exist, then God exists. So, valid argument, if the premises are true, then the conclusion must be true. Yes, you want to know about one. Okay, I'm just showing this as a formally valid argument. It's not shown yet to be sound. I'm just guiding you through. So let's look. Don't worry about this. This is just in terms of modal. In terms of necessary condition, it's the same, applying that. So you just understand that it's a valid argument. We don't know if it's sound. Well, it's a true disjunctive, an exclusive disjunction. That it's either God is the necessary condition or not God. Okay? And even this isn't known to be sound yet. Not God. In other words, impossibility of the contrary here. They're going to ask, well, how do you know this? Okay, now I'm going to show how the valid argument is actually now sound by going into the details. But if you don't understand the kind of general structure of the reasoning and inferences that you're making, then you're not going to get the details. So first understand that, then go, well, okay, let's get another disjunctive. Exclusive disjunctive. It's either theonomous epistemology or autonomous. What does autonomous mean? Autonomous means that you could justify the existence of God on the assumption that it might not be possible that God exists. Autonomously from God as the starting point or kind of presupposition. All right. Well, premise 2, if autonomous epistemology is true, then it's possible to make those second order kind of claims. That knowledge exists. Admitting that it's possible, God, which I'll later show is the necessary condition, does not exist. Well, that's premise 2 is undeniable. It's just a definition of autonomous epistemology, the rejection of presuppositionals. Premise 3, if autonomous epistemology is possible, then it's possible that revelatory theism is false. It's kind of just tautologically true, isn't it? Premise 4, it's either God, revelatory theism. So notice how I'm defining God. Bahnsen does the same thing. By God, I mean this. What's revealed publicly in history. not individually, right? And the Trinity, right? Not some generic God that you made up in your mind by lowest common denominatorism, because that would be autonomous. I'm talking the Christian revelation. So it's either revelatory theism, it's not revelatory theism. Not revelatory theism or not God is accidentalism. We've went over that. And why accidentalism is defeated from knowledge. There is no accidental knowledge. Read any lucky guesses and stuff like that. So then I cannot use that as a logical or semantic principle to explain not where knowledge comes from or the history, right, through Darwinism or something like that. I'm saying something more fundamental. Can I use logically or semantically the thing that knowledge excludes to explain what logic and knowledge is? No, you can't. So it's more fundamental. That's accidentalism. Accidentalism, premise 6, makes knowledge impossible. It's contradictory because of the definition of knowledge. You cannot explain something semantically and logically by the thing that something excludes. Otherwise, you're saying both A and not A. Therefore, not God, revelatory theism is false. However, if not God or not revelatory theism is false, a defeater for knowledge and knowledge claims, any knowledge claim, then what? By impossibility to the contrary, there is no other option, right? So you don't need to consider like, well, what if all those theories and possible things all the way into the future and every logical possible will fall into either one of those categories. So therefore, if accidentalism is false, revelatory theism must be true. But if revelatory theism is true, however, if not God, not revelatory is false, then revelatory theism is true. But if revelatory theism is necessarily true, notice it's not accidentally, it's necessary because there is no other possibilities, then God must be the necessary condition for the possibility of knowledge. Premise 10, however, if God is the only necessary condition for the possibility of knowledge, then autonomous epistemology implies that it's both, because autonomous epistemology can later conclude in the existence of God, but assumes what? That it's not necessary to assume in order to know stuff and make deductions, etc. That it might be possible that the necessary condition is not necessary but only possible. Well, what's that called? That's called a contradiction. It's both possible, the necessary condition. Possible and necessary are antithetical categories. And you're saying it's both possible the necessary condition exists and it's possible it doesn't exist. It's both possible and impossible. Therefore, autonomous epistemology is self-contradictory and false. However, if autonomous epistemology is false, then revelatory theism must be true. If revelatory theism is true, then is God revealed as Trinity, or God revealed as something else. So how many options do you actually have as far as revelatory theism? And you can make another argument, well, it must be Trinity. So first, Trinity is revealed, so you've got to start with that fact in history. But I argue here there must be a proportion between the necessary condition that's not like you at all. It's unconditioned, infinite, uncircumscribed being, and conditioned finite being. There is no proportion. Except for this. You're a person, God's a person. There's a relation there. God must therefore be personal if we're to obtain the necessary conditions. But personhood implies relation to other persons. Notice objects and natures don't have personal relations. Therefore, God must be eternally relate to another person. Otherwise, it's just a superficial name that's given to him later. But that doesn't help us obtain the necessary conditions for the possibility of knowledge if he's not intrinsically personal, not actually a person, eternally. So not a strict monad right there, because it already implies a relation eternally to another person. God cannot be two persons, a dyad, since a dyad is the principle of difference, and if two things are different, they are not the same, and the two persons wouldn't be God. Therefore, God must be three persons, a trinity of one essence, since the triad overcomes the dialectical tension of the dyad. Any other number of persons is simply reducible in principle to either 1, 2, or 3, and you're back in the same problem, and it's just superfluous and redundant to add. Okay, premise 18. There are only three religions that you can think of that are Trinitarian: Roman Catholicism, Protestant, and Orthodoxy. Roman Catholicism and Protestant do not have a doctrine of energies where God is both transcendent and immanent in the world. However, if God is not truly present in the world and immanent, if he's utterly transcendent, then you're like Islam, right? Nothing is like Allah. Then he could not be known. If God cannot be known, then he cannot be obtained as the necessary condition of the possibility. If God cannot be obtained as the necessary condition of the possibility, then we cannot make any second-order claims of knowledge that knowledge exists. Therefore, if we're making second-order knowledge claims, then we cannot claim Catholicism and Protestant is true. Therefore, Orthodoxy must be true and possible. There are no other options. There it is. It's very simple. I took every single possible theory that you could ever come up with and brought them back down to those fundamental, kind of more general principles that they would always fall into those categories. I didn't put that completely in my paper. I put half of that argument, that's just in a notes that I wrote. It's only half of that argument is listed as in a footnote in one of my papers. Also, the problem too is people's mindset. Why the Trinity? How does the Trinity prove the... Why is that necessary? Well, you're missing the point. You don't start from the pieces and then build up to a whole theory, because then you're in autonomous epistemology. The whole conditions the truth of the pieces. So now I can illustrate some of the pieces and be like, well, yeah, this is why that's a necessary condition. And the rejection of that, Unitarianism and stuff like that would lead to problem, but you're thinking about it incorrectly. It's the whole, and it's irreducibly complex. I cannot reduce the whole to any of the parts. I don't start with the parts and prove the whole. The whole is God's revelation to mankind. That's what you're missing. The whole is what conditions and makes all the parts and necessary conditions necessary and true. The whole is delivered to mankind. God is a Trinity. God has divine energies, right? It's the whole system. So I would say people think about tag wrongly. They're still stuck in autonomous epistemology. Because how do I know, apart from the whole, the necessary conditions of the possibility and knowledge, that any of the parts are necessarily true? Do you see what the problem is? Oh, good. Yeah, I love Father Valentin. He's coming to MontaNIKA, by the way, with Father Julian. And by the way, if an atheist gets a gotcha on me, all you did is got me. You didn't get the argument. But maybe I missed something. Maybe I didn't word it correct. Like, that's all you got. Doesn't mean you defeated the argument. Because it's the argument for arguments. It's like, how do you defeat something? All you can say would be like, you didn't do a good job representing what the actual argument is. You missed something. That's the very best you got. I don't mind that. I've made mistakes before. I'm always trying to look, too, how to polish it up. And the rhetoric, should I even use presuppositionalism? Should I even use the term tag? Is it helpful? Does it bring in more baggage? Like, yeah, I'm willing to improve and polish up the argument. I don't think that's a problem. So there's no gotcha. All right, let's see if we have any more super chats. That was like 8 years ago. That's always trips me out, how people find out about that Jay and I were working on a tag book, which I think was like 7 or 8 years ago. We had proposed that we changed our minds on, but I just always kind of curious, where'd you find that, or where'd you hear that from? Jay and I are not working on a tag book. We thought, it was an original kind of proposal that we might do something like that, and then we thought that our efforts would be better directed elsewhere, and that we actually wanted to work on polishing up the argument before we would ever even do something like that. So we decided not to do that, but I think that was about 7 or 8 years ago. You must be finding old videos or something like that. Is that... Is that where you found it? All right, what do you guys want to do next? Yeah, it's an old... Also, my godson Tony, if I did do something like that, I think I'm gonna help with Tony. So if you remember, we learned these in an apologetics group. When I was 18, found this group in 1996. My godson Tony, who's older than me, had been going a lot longer than working with Russ Mannion on even prior to that. Russ Mannion passed away last year. They were working on this book. They were always working on kind of a language. Tony Baumkamp here. To how to present this. They're very different than me, too. Obviously, when speaking to philosophers, I speak philosophies that I might win the philosopher over. Russ Mannion did teach philosophy, has a master's in it. But I think they're a lot better at the language and stuff. So I was very interested in, how they presented it, less kind of analytic philosophy and logic than myself. And it's very successful. Russ passed away, and so now Tony, my godson, is basically working on compiling a book about this, and I'd rather put my kind of energy in that. But let me read you something that my godson wrote. It'll show you the difference, the way like he kind of explains stuff, and I think it's almost even better than the way that I present it, because it moves out of the kind of left brain sphere and into the right brain, which is really where the argument is actually grasped. He says, so he tells a story, an analogy. Consider the following analogy, because he titles this Position to Know and Reveal. So he won't even call it an argument or a proof. That's what's really interesting. He just says, is it true? Is it true? So notice he's already moving away from kind of like the way that I present. And I really like this kind of approach. Consider the following analogy. A group of divers are standing on a cliff overlooking the ocean. They have an old drawn map that shows an underwater cave system immediately below them. However, there are no other records of an underwater cave system at that location. One of the divers leaps from the cliff and disappears under the surf. His fellow divers wait expecting for him to resurface. Finally, they see the bubbles, and then he breaks the surface, and they look excitedly for him to provide confirmation that he has in fact found the cave system. Of all the divers, he is the only one in the position to know whether the cave system is really a reality or the map is a hoax. As he breaks the ocean surface, he signals his other divers with a clear thumbs up. Just as I want intrepid divers in a position to know whether the cave system really exists or is only a fictional map, if the world is intentional, then there exists someone for whom the world is not a construct. This is kind of the autonomous epistemology. Someone who is, as A.J. Ayer's term, in a position to know. And this opens up the possibility of our narrative construction. So notice, none of this is about an argument or proof. This opens up the possibility of narrative construction, moving beyond mere fictionalism towards realism. The possibility of engaging in a more than pure construct, i.e. wondering whether the cave is real or not. But this can only happen if the person who is in a position to know participates in the conversation. He provides the thumbs up. This participation is called revelation. Now, of course, the diver analogy only goes so far. The diver was in a position to know whether the caves was real or only a fiction on an old map. However, in an intentional world, the one in a position to know is in the position because he created the world ex nihilo, and in fact behind the world. Thus, he is not just in a position to know, as our diver, but is in the position to know, which is the position of being in back of the world. Well, the diver was in a position to reveal to his fellow divers that the cave was real because he saw the cave entrance. The one in the back of the world knows what is because he knows what he has done. Thus, the creator of the world, standing in the back of the world, is not just in a position to know, but like our intrepid diver is also in a position to reveal. Extending the analogy to the issues of epistemic standing, the question becomes not, does a being in the position to know exist, but has it been revealed? If so, where has it been revealed? Does history contain evidence of such revelation? Ultimately, there is really only one serious candidate, the Christian revelation claim. Revelation conveys standing. In order to understand how revelation conveys standing, it will help to return to the diver on the cliff. It turns out that when the divers initially reached the cliff for their dive, they were not aware of the cave or even the old map that purportedly showed the location of the cave system. While they were checking their tanks and equipment, a young boy from a local village approached them and offered them an old map for a small amount of cash. Prior to the appearance of the boy, there was no knowledge of the cave, and no reason to expect such a feature. Thus, it was only upon receipt of the map from the young boy that the possibility of the cave became a reality, though still needing confirmation. Thus, epistemic standing was conveyed through simple transaction between the divers and the boy. It only remained for the intrepid diver to plunge into the surface and confirm that in fact it was a cave. While the analogy is not perfect, it does show that it was only through revelation that the divers became aware that there may be a cave below the waves, and it is only through empirical confirmation that the contents of the map were certified. Thus, for the issue of epistemic standing, the question becomes not, does a being in a position to know exist? As we have already seen through the discussion just mentioned, under theism as hermeneutic, that is the question has been answered. The question that remains unanswered is, has it been revealed? If so, where has it been revealed? Does history contain evidence of such revelation? The Christian tradition is the only tradition which claims that the person in back of the world has entered into the world, and evidence that fact by putting us in a position to know. By doing so, the one who's in a position to know has conveyed epistemic standing to us. More specifically, the Christian tradition claims that God exists in the back of the world, and that the world is an intentional epistemic design plan. It claims God talked with and conveyed knowledge to the first humans, expanded the conversation through Moses, the prophets, the apostles, and corroborated all this with an empirical visit, leaving a large indelible mark in history. Could this be where he has spoken, and in doing so conveyed epistemic standing? Given the lack of serious counter-traditions, there is no argument from nowhere by which to say no. The end. How awesome is that? Notice, very different. Very different. And I like the story. I like the analogy. And maybe that's the way forward. Maybe it's, again, part of the reason why I've grasped this argument in my right brain. I deliver it over to my left brain and do the kind of heavy lifting philosophically and analytically. And then hand it back over the right brain, because it's like working through the nuts and bolts. It's like when you get an intuition, which all of my philosophy begins with. It's like, I know this is right. I know this other position is wrong. And then I go and I kind of check my work and kind of do, and then I come back over. And it does give me a better kind of insight in terms of like presentation, etc. So, anyways. Any more super chats? You guys want to? What's next topic? Dark triad traits? What do you guys want to do? So anyways, that's what Tony's working on. If I was going to do a book, I'd probably, and I have been kind of working with Tony, I'll probably direct my effort to that. I find that people respond to the analogies and stories better than, because people are always like, could you put it down to like all the premises and the lot, like, I've never yet seen anybody, when I do all that work, well, I take that back because I'll mention something, but for the most part, I haven't seen people be like, oh, there it is, now I see it, which I find interesting. It's like, the clearer and kind of more fine you make it, it doesn't seem to fix the issue. Where people are like, I get it. The only time that I saw that was when I presented to the professors and philosophers at the last conference my newest paper, Epistemic Theories and Meta-Theoretical Validation. They said it was the best paper. They said they didn't have any objections. They said the previous reason, they had some objections and questions and stuff like that. They're like, you did it. You fixed it. And that was the only time that I've actually seen, I'm like, oh my gosh, it worked. I'm sure people are going to have there's always somebody can come up with a, well, nah, what about this, and what if I actually develop this theory, or this theory I ascribe to doesn't fit into your criticism? Like, I'm never gonna get every single possible like objection to. Always somebody could stump me on. Um. All right, let's go over dark triad traits. What do you want to do? Yeah, that's interesting. Somebody was saying I should do a video on top 5 worst Protestant arguments. Call no man father would be one. Sounds like a praise man. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Call no man father. From their hit single. What? What would their. From their hit album. Give me a good Protestant. Evangeli, their hit. Welcome, call no man father. Maybe if you send in a super chat. I think I might have posted it in the Discord server somewhere. They're just notes. They're just like, just set out and wrote it. Because people were asking me, they wanted a line by line premise that included every pot. I'm like, all right, I can do it if you want me to. It's not like it fixed the problem of disbelief, though. That's what I'm saying. It's like people are like, oh, I get it now. That's what I'm saying. Maybe it's just better to tell the diver story. Hold the diver! That's what I'm going to play right now. Let's watch. Am I going to get dinged? Dio. How does that work? How come some... Well, this is what I don't get. How come sometimes people can pull up music or a movie or a clip or something like that and they don't get demonetized? That I can't figure out. I seem to, anytime I pull it, I'm always getting like that video is demonetized or revenue share, or like you have to do revenue share. That doesn't mean they take your super chats though, right? It's just the ads. How does, do you know? Hold the diver. Well, like I'm probably like singing it, I get demonetized and I have to share. But riddle me that. Why is it that some people can pull it off and they don't, and then... Does anybody know? 21. Hold on. Look out for. All right, there's my Ronnie Dio. Hopefully it was short enough that I'm not going to get... we did this... We're going to do tag through Dio. Oh, you never heard of the Dio tag argument? It's the best one ever. It's about a diver, a holy diver. It's literally the story that we just read. It's crazy. Yeah, I could edit. I've done that too, or if I get dinged, I just edit it out. Holy diver, revelatory theism. Oh, you know what I mean. Huh. That's what we do. Like, I totally can't believe. The only reason why I get it was we've never put the argument into song, into metal. Man, you just gotta make it metal. Hands down, I guarantee it's gonna work. What do you think? Man, what a great idea. Thank you guys. We was bishops. Bishop Tilda Swindon. We was bishops. We was not bishops. Anyways, yeah. A whole tab. Yeah, why write a book when I can make an album? My brother's in the music industry. He's going to be the sound engineer for MontaNIKA. So yesterday, it's like I feel like there's demons that have like people locked up and they release them. Yesterday was a release of the Dark Triad folk, fake moral piety signalers. And they were out and about. Lots of blocks yesterday. Somebody asked, what are the Dark Triad? Never heard of them. Well, let's look. It was something identified, it was a term identified in modern psychology. And then in this Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, 3 professors from the University of British Columbia wrote an excellent paper, or the American Psychological Association, signaling virtuous and victimhood as indicators of Dark Triad personality. So I brought these kind of 2 things. We've talked about this. The abstract of this paper, we investigate the consequences and the predictors of emitting signals of victimhood and virtue. So notice this was going on. Oh, they associate certain groups of people or themselves as the victim. So in this case, it was, the poor low IQ Protestants, and then attach virtue to and virtue language to this. And it's going to explore, what sort of people do that kind of thing? Connect victimhood and virtue, whether it's itself or a group of people or something like that. And what they did is they studied this. And it says, in our first 3 studies, we show that the virtuous victim signal, i.e. the fake piety moral signaling, can facilitate non-reciprocal resource transfer from others to the signaler. So they're doing this for the audience, right? They're trying to win over the audience, obviously not by argumentation or logic or reasoning, but they're actually trying to get a resource transfer rather than to get them on board, or actual resources in other instances. And when they study this in 3 studies, when they see that they combine with an established measure of virtue signaling, moral piety, right? Fake moral piety, to operationalize the virtuous victim construct, we show individuals with dark triad traits. And here in modern psychology, way prior to this article, they identified dark triad traits as Machiavellianism, narcissism, and psychopathy. And you could replace psychopathy with the kind of more deflated term of sociopathy. More frequently, people that have those traits signal virtuous victimhood, controlling for demographic, and socioeconomic variables that are commonly associated with victimization in Western societies. In study 5, we show the specific dimension of Machiavellianism. Now, Machiavellianism was where you treat people as a means only. And guess what? What was the thing I hate? Manipulation. So that's the Machiavellianism. They're using emotional manipulation and amoral manipulation. And that signals a form of narcissism that reflects a person's belief in their own superior pro-societal predict more frequent virtuous victim signaling. Studies 3, 4, and 6 test our hypothesis that the frequency of emitting virtuous victim signal predicts a person's willingness to engage in and endorse ethically questionable behaviors. Now, what's really interesting is the Pharisaicism, and the irony of they're calling out what is Saul Alinsky's rules for radical: accuse your opponent of the thing that you actually do. Cry out also as you strike them. That's what we saw on Twitter yesterday. Oh, you're the... So they do the one thing that they're accusing you of questioning. You're so mean, your ethical behavior as a deacon. But it's actually they're doing the thing they're accusing you of that you're not actually doing. They'll lie. So there's points out such as lying to earn a bonus, intention to purchase counterfeit products, moral judgments of counterfeiters, make exaggerated claims about being harmed. Okay? These are the people that were on Twitter yesterday. The cry that the one is a victim of injustice. It's that mean old deacon that in Jay Dyer that is oppressing everybody. They're being what? Intolerant. And it's me and these other groups that they're victims of. Now, they do that for any myriad of reasons. Why people believe they are prevented from getting what they want. That's why I would say, like, why are you the victim? Why do you think? Well, for a myriad of reasons. It remains so today. Accounts describing a person's experience of being victimized by individual groups, organizations, a society, a deacon, a mean Jay Dyer, an ortho bro. They appear on the internet, newspapers, everyday conversations. The dictionary defines a victim as, quote, one who suffers some injury, hardship, or loss, is badly treated or taken advantage of. An extensive literature on victimization has constantly shown that being a victim can be highly aversive experience, resulting in serious outcomes like post-traumatic stress disorder, psychological distress, fear, anxiety. You know, I was talking to my brother with this. We're talking about various people that we know that are groups of people that are play victim. And like, their lives are not these are not happy people. And here we actually have extensive literature that people who live, the world owes me everything. I'm the victim, which is totally antithetical to orthodoxy. To have a victim mentality. Well, those people don't live good lives. The evidence shows plenty of literature here. Post-traumatic stressors, psychological distress, fear, anxiety, loss of esteem. What did I say? These people have no self-esteem. They hate themselves. They hate you and the world. Heightened perceptions of vulnerability, diminished sense of power. They feel that, right? There's jealousy. Self-esteem, I'm a loser. I want the other person. But rather than working with us on any of these things, they turn to hate and smear campaigns and an invalidation of one's sense of security, trust, and optimism. Victims can also incur social costs, like being stigmatized and blamed for their predicament. These negative outcomes suggest that being a victim is generally not a desirable state. Yet in the current historical period, many observers have argued that in the United States and other Western countries, being a victim does not always carry these negative connotations or produce unwanted outcomes. In fact, it's been alleged that Western societies have so embraced, quote, a culture of victimhood that claiming one as a victim has increasingly become an advantage, right? Don't you get points like you add up, like, well, I'm a trans Eskimo vegan male transition female, what are all the, you get each one marginalized group, you get more and more points, right? It becomes advantageous. What might explain, I don't know why I picked Eskimo, it just seemed ridiculous. Pick whatever the marginalized like group, right, in terms of race or something. Like you can add that. You can add the trans. You can add a trans woman. Blah, like you just add them all up, and you obviously get more advantage. What might explain why people would be willing to publicly claim victimhood and seek to be labeled by others a victim? One possibility is that sharing their experiences helps them cope with negative consequences of victimization. Remember the he gets us whole thing, right? Notice they don't put just anybody in there, but the people that they want. The people, right? So there could be all types of marginalized, disenfranchised, stigmatized groups. I'm not even going to name it on this air here, right? There's certain ones they won't put in there. We all know who we're talking about. Oh, not those guys, right? It has to be the gay, LGBT, Skittles, pedo, tranny, transformer groups. But those other people, those fascists, those blah, 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 those don't go in there. Many victims experience social isolation, which can intensify their sense of powerlessness. Communicating their victimization experiences publicly may connect them to others to have similar. I think this would explain why you get the kind of groups, the chat. Like a lot of these people are kind of groomed. These kids are kind of groomed in these transformer chat groups and stuff like that, to give a sense of belonging, to reinterpret their feelings that we all felt as kids, feeling weird, not like everybody else. Well, what? Well, we can explain that, and we can help you cope by saying you're actually a transformer. And maybe that gives them a sense of kind of belonging, and a sense of power is accommodated. Communicating their victimization experience publicly may connect them to others, like I said. I had a similar experience too. I think I'm a transformer who can provide them with a social validation. So that's what we're seeing in terms of the media, legacy media, the activist judges, the schools, the internet itself, and they support these things and give social validation. Victim claiming can also allow them to justify a demand for redress, regain a sense of power, and restore diminished self-worth, i.e. reparations. In addition, it's a therapeutic effect. Public communication of one victim could inspire a collective of institutional responses. That's what you said. Like we have it in the schools, the workplaces. a response to address a systemic cause of the experience at a societal level. Notwithstanding these benefits, we propose that claiming victim status, an act we refer to as victim signaling, also allows victims to pursue an environmental resource extraction strategy that helps them survive, flourish, and achieve their goals in situations that are responsive to their claims. By resource extraction, we mean that resources are transferred from either individual or large institutions. You can get funded from the state, from schools, from your company, for being a transformer, for being whatever they say is now the marginalized victim. There are many resources that can be transferred to someone with victim status, and so we use the term resource broadly to refer to any material, money, jobs, access to education. So that's what's so funny is myself, I'm the privilege, right? I have privilege, yet ironically, I'm the most underprivileged. I don't have these. I cannot actually get the jobs and money and education because I'm not the marginalized group. So it's actually inverted. It's satanic. Remember? Accuse the other person or group of the thing that you're actually doing, right? So they accuse certain groups of having privilege. Well, actually, we're underprivileged, and the ones they call underprivileged are the ones who actually have the advance and the privilege in society in terms of secular wokeism and all this kinds of stuff. Woe to them that call evil good and good evil is something that comes to mind. Or it could be symbolic. Assets that one party possesses and another party wants to acquire. We argue that contemporary Western democracies have become particularly hospitable environments for victim signalers to execute a strategy of non-reciprocal resource extraction because several features of societies make victimhood potentially advantageous. First, the spreading of egalitarian values in the West leads many people to perceive any differential outcomes, there it is, outcomes, of evidence of overstratification. So they're basically alluding to it's not a quality of opportunity. Everybody's given an equal opportunity, but everything's judged in terms of it must be a quality outcome. So if there's one group of people that or more sentenced and commit crimes or something like that, or have a higher suicide rate, right? So it's the outcome. That's where the problem. Make all things equal to, right? We'll just eliminate, we just won't charge people for crimes. Look at what's going on in UK and Ireland, right? These people can come in and grape, Grape, kill, stab, murder, all these people but they're right, and they're not prosecuted because their attempt to, in terms make it equal the outcome. Oh, because there's systemic R word in our society, so we're not going to prosecute these people. But if you tweet about that your child was stabbed, raped in the UK or Ireland, you are arrested because you made a Twitter post, right? So they're trying to make the outcomes, not the opportunities, equal, but everything made equal, which is ultimately satanic. And they do this associated through victimhood. People who signal victimhood because they perceive themselves as being deprived of what others possess. So you don't work at it. I want it. I want that, what you have. Or they're treated in a way that others are not. Maybe because you committed a crime. Maybe because you... Oh, no, that's not it. I'm owed something. See this victimhood? Well, they can therefore find a receptive audience among many who detect their signal. Second, the alleviation of human suffering is treated as a paramount value in Western societies. Yeah, that's actually true. Nobody should have to suffer. Totally antithetical to Orthodox Christianity. Take up your cross and follow me. If they persecute me, they persecute you. So notice it's literally, I'm identifying how it's Luciferian and satanic. This heightened sensitivity to suffering, coupled with the ease of bidirectional mass communication, such as social media platform, I just mentioned that, has increased the reach and effectiveness of recruiting third-party support for signaling victimhood. Examples can be seen in cases where an individual or group who claims to be a victim elicits statements of concern and sympathy from politicians. We have this guy that stabbed somebody, right? Is obviously the criminal killed this poor kid. And they what? It's exactly, they've got a GoFundMe raising hundreds of thousands of dollars so that the parents can buy a rich home, and this kid can live. I mean, this is insane. But this is what happened. To reach effectiveness of recruiting third-party support. Why? Oh, the one who perpetuated the crime is now the victim. Examples can be seen in cases where an individual group claims to be the victim elicits statements of concern and sympathy from politicians, celebrities, media pundits, social activists, and other influential people. Always, right? Sometimes the victim signalers also receive material economic support from these parties. We see that right now with the case I just cited. Based on these observations, we propose that the victim signaling can be a mechanism through which a pattern of resource transfers can be initiated by the signaler. We define victim signaling as the public and intentional express of one's disadvantages. Oh, poor me. Look. Remember, and also, what did I say? They cry out as they strike you. Poor me. Suffering oppression and personal limitations. We further suggest that the victim signaling is maximally effective at initiating resource transference when it's coupled with virtue signaling. So we have this, right? Victimhood is advantageous. Couple that with virtue signaling, and you double your profits. To find a symbolic demonstration that leads observers to make favorable inferences. I mean, it's crazy. Think about some of the worst cultures in history. Worst religions. What are they? Oh, it's all interpreted through this kind of Marx, actually kind of new school critical theory, oppressor oppressed. The losers, the worst of society, religion, and history are what? Oh, well, they're the marginalized, you see. And the marginalized, the victims, are then coupled with, but those are the good people, right? We should give them all that's the virtue. And then what does that work out societally? The virtuous victim can induce those who perceive the signal to offer more social and economic resources. Islam's a great example of this. We get rid of Columbus Day and replace it with pagan sacrifice, like celebrating Indigenous Pagan Sacrifice Day. Like, do you see? Moreover, we hypothesize that people willing and able to use deception, so this is what these people are doing, and manipulation, retaining personal goals, people possessing dark triad traits, will more frequently emit virtuous victim signals compared to people lacking the dark triad traits. All right, I'm going to stop here and ask any questions that you have thus far. Feeling the Wolf, another £2. Thank you. Noah Strong goes $20. Wow, thank you. Appreciate the free education. Father Christ is risen. Christos enviat ad verat enviat. We brought this up. Numina asked a question about this too. Am I an epistemic holist? there's an element of, and what I'd like to say, I'm not dogmatically committed to. It's typically the way that I would view scientific paradigms. I'm not attempting to use any of these theories to justify at a second order level that knowledge exists and the grounding problem and accounting. Inevitably, I'm going to have to use philosophical and epistemic language, but those are more in terms of semantic faculties that rather than jusculatory. I'm not having to do the kind of legwork that I want to. It's just like inevitably I'm going to have to use words, language, and what I will say though is, and Jay would say this too, is that if you think about scientific paradigms, every scientific paradigm has anomalies, there's problems and issues. But there might be reasons to prefer, for example, modern atomic theory to phlogiston. Or why somebody might have moved to the Copernican from the Ptolemaic system or something like that, etc. But that doesn't mean that the current paradigm, scientific paradigm that you hold to or use the kind of language or operate and think within, that you think it's absolutely true that I am a Copernican, or I am, whatever and that it's free from anomalies. It's just the best. It's like, well, at this part, as far as kind of a theory that's out there, like it's better than the other ones. I typically hold that about epistemic holism, as opposed to kind of foundationalism, verification theories. So a coherence theory of truth and yeah, I know it has problems. Like there's certain kind of issues, but they've got a lot of good points, and I'd probably lean more towards that. The way that language and truth, the propositions, and that work are probably more like what the epistemic holist, coherentist theory of truth and justification probably. So that's all. That's all he's saying. In the Bonjour book, Noah, there's a section on naturalized epistemology, or epistemology naturalized, that doesn't, it's not going to be as hard as Two Dogmas of Empiricism by Quine. I'd probably start there. I might also go to this Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy on what naturalized epistemology, so just get a kind of general idea of what they're doing. And then you can go further into Quine and these issues. Father Deacon, good to see you. Christ is risen. He's in reason indeed. Hope to see you soon in 41 days. I'm assuming you're coming. We're getting the band back together. We couldn't get Father John Valdez, I know. But we have Father Turbo. We have you, me, some of the old school dudes from St. Barnabas. So please come. We really miss you and want to see you. It was crazy that Ireland, organically, none of the left liberal Democrat protests are ever organic. People look, how do you, and they'll always be like, "That's a conspiracy." You don't. It's like that's how the liberals and left were. Like, I know the funding. And I'm saying like every single person out there, every boomer, we had the boomer revolt like a couple months ago. They're gonna take away our Social Security. Elon Musk's gonna take our Social Security and put it out in space now. Oh man, sit down, dude. What are you talking about? Old people shouldn't be allowed to drive. Vote or make protests. How about that? Putting you in a home, dude. Old Democrat boomers are the worst, man. Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen one of those pages. But those things are funded and organized, right? The left and the Democrats are very good at that. Republicans are not organized like that. They don't. There's things in the system, whatever, whether it's a flaw or not. They tend to be kind of more populist and organic and stuff like that. They don't have the backing and funding to do stuff like that. So that's how I know right away. But we see in Ireland, the people rose up and had their voice. Ireland is for the Irish. They have a right to preserve their culture and language and their people and not have their children stabbed and raped by foreign invaders from a different religion, it's insane. Here's the virtuous victimhood. So good for the Irish. I mean, it's so sad to think about what a wonderful example of nationalism Ireland was to form its identity, only to lose it 100 years later. What happened is that international socialism, i.e. through the kind of leftist, that's international socialism, came in and used critical theory into and merged with and Crispy, you can talk about this too, Sinn Féin and the IRA. Remember, the IRA split into two because they were heavily national.
The IRA was always left leaning though.
But they did always have kind of a left lean. Maybe they were prone to. But it seemed like, no, you know what I'm thinking about? The Hibernians. That's the movement. The Hibernians. Remember that, Crispy? That group? There's two elements of kind of a nationalism and versus internationalism, the kind of left, that I think kind of won over in Ireland. And this is why internationalism, let's mix every single religion, people, and group and destroy the nation state. And you're seeing the outcome of that. But it seemed like, I thought it was over. I had hope when I saw how many million people were out in the protests, and it's enough's enough. They're still the fighting Irish. It's amazing. So keep the Irish in your prayers. Keep Crispy and everybody that we know over there in your prayers. How do you think more critically? Well, you get yourself some of that Patristic Faith coffee right there. That's a first start right there. I want like Jones, right, selling what's it called? The blue, that blue stuff. Help me out. All right. I looked up on YouTube 7 liberal arts and it gave me some Masonic Hermetics. Or no, that's weird. Oh, it's crazy. Have you guys ever been to cemeteries? How many? I went to the cemetery over here. We're looking for. This gentleman's uncle. How many Masons there was? Cemeteries are always like, the Masons just own cemeteries. But it's crazy. You gotta see. So I saw all these ones that had 33 degree on it. Then I saw. Took a photo of it. Can you see this? Let me see if I make it darker. Oh, it's worse. It's a pentagram on this thing. Mary Dickinson. My bunch of grave sites had this pentagram on. The year of Mary A. Dickinson, 1872 to 1962. Here's another one that I found too. I took a photo of. Is Mary C. 1871 to 1959. Has a pentagram. When I looked it up, it's called the Eastern Star. At that period of time, that is actually a... Yeah, methylene blue, thank you. That is a popular Masonic symbol. We have a type of Masonic weird thing called property, and they turned it into a hotel. What is it called? The Odd Fellows. There's a lot of Masonic activity in Helena, Montana. We have the Masons literally made the Civic Center into like a Taj Mahal with a minaret. So the Romanians were like, "You have a mosque?" And I'm like, "It's not a mosque." I'm like, I don't really have. We don't have any people with any people with funny hats, tiny hats, or any Muslims here. There's a small group of people with little hats. Here, they've had a historical presence. It's very small. But anyways, we have Masons. We have a Masonic Lodge. We have a Shriners Temple, and then the Shriners built, and then we have this Odd Fellows, and then the cemeteries are owned by Masons. Like, it's crazy. But that's not just here. Like, I was in California with cemeteries. Many of them are owned by Masons, and tons of Masonic sections and stuff like that. It's just crazy to see how intertwined they are in the United States. It doesn't matter where you are. I've been to Condalia, Texas, on the middle of nowhere, and there's a Mason's Lodge. It's like they're everywhere. It doesn't matter how far you go. There will always be something Masonic or a Mason or something. It's... Oh, thanks, Noah. That's a great... The Eastern Star, the 5-pointed star. And remember, it's not the Star of David. It's inverse, so it's going up, the 2 points up. That's why the pentagram is... and they call it the Eastern Star. Noah says, 5-pointed star is central emblem symbolizing the biblical heroines Ada, Ruth, Esther, Martha, and... Yeah, they have this weird thing. What's the women's, like, Masons? Job's Daughters or something like that? They have this, like, weird stuff with, like, the Old Testament. I didn't know that. Kneecast Sinn Féin. So, Chris, is that true? Was Sinn Féin in the IRA, were they always left-leaning? Or was it infiltrated? Because I hear different stories about... But I know the Hibernians was kind of the right-wing nationalist version. All right, you want to go back to the dark triad traits? Virtuous victimhood lecture. Ew. Ugh. Dark triad. Oh, that's gross. Itchy eyes. Christos enviate mort, cum morte calcunt, ciceror morminte, viața doluind. Okay. It's mostly been left wing. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, Ireland's history is amazing. Alright, let's go back to Dr. Dreats. That's my, we could actually do this whole lecture in 90s, grunge, Nickelback. Dr. Dreats, victimhood, yeah. What do you think? Da. Vorbeț. Românește? Da. Puțin? Mult. I'm not the best at, but yeah, I can speak Romanian. Foarte bine. All right, where am I? Yeah, creed. I'm going to read it in the theoretical background. Our hypothesis is the proposition victim signaling. Theoretical background. I do this to my wife all to drive her crazy. I'm like, sweetheart, give me a soda pop out of the refrigerator. Eddie Vedder. Eddie Vedder. Oh, Edward Soda Pop, reading dark triad traits. Theoretical background. Our hypothesis follow from the presupposition that victim signaling may be used as a social influence tactic that can motivate recipients to signal voluntary transfer of resources. Didn't I just read this? Emerging literature on competitive victim documents the prevalence of victim signaling by various groups and provides evidence for its functionality as a resource. Oh, I like resources. Extraction strategy. For instance, victim signaling justifies victim groups seeking retribution against I need reparations. Reparation time. Innovative style. Retribution often takes the form of demanding compensation. Give it to me. I need the money. Through some kind of resource transfer to non-victims. Yeah, it's you guys. Why didn't I play this up? Guys. Just look at me. Hold on. Look at. Hey, oh. Only if I had another super chat. Oh, the pain. I can't. Oh, my leg. Only if I had more super chats. Pour me. Sweetheart, could you pour me another drink?
What?
I'm just making a joke to the crowd. I'm Tiny Tim. God bless every single one of us. Ooh. Hey, change. Super chats. Send in your super chats. Oh, I just gotta. Why don't I do that? I didn't even get this idea until reading Virtuous Victimhood. So go ahead and send in your super chats. Help poor Tiny Tim and his crippled leg ministry out. Won't you? If you're a true Christian, you do. Wouldn't you do that? Yeah. Feeling the will. It works. The experiment works. Feeling the will donates £2 for those sore legs. You can call me Metal Legs from now on. Help poor Metal Legs Deacon in his suffering pain. So sad. All right, let's go back to, since we're learning about virtuous victimhood, shall we? I like this stream on virtuous victimhood. Yeah, but what do I get out of it? What do I get out of reading this article? Money? Okay. Maybe. Claiming victim status can also facilitate resource transfer by conferring moral immunity upon the claimant. Moral immunity shields the alleged victim from criticism about the means they might use to satisfy their demands. One way I think you detract, again, is accuse your opponent of the thing that you're doing. We saw this on. So it gives them moral immunity. If they claim to be the pious Orthodox Christian, how dare you? It's a sort of kind of red herring that gives a perceived kind of moral immunity. Well, you can't criticize me because I'm the one criticizing you for not being virtuous and acting like a Christian. So, in other words, victim status can morally justify the use of deceit. So, what these people are doing, they're lying on Twitter. They're lying on. They're using power and intimidation, even violence, by alleged. I mean, thank God nobody's threatened me with violence. But we see this actually played out politically. The left says, no, it's okay to... so law, order, morality doesn't actually matter. They're justified in creating violence against a group because why? I mean, you hear them actually say, like, literally, they're calling a call to violence. Well, because they're the virtuous victims. So it's about achieving their goals. It's not about law, morality, order. Related, claiming victim status can lead observers to hold a person less blameworthy, excusing transgressions. We just saw the case of the poor kid that was stabbed and killed, right? Oh, he's excused. He's getting monies and, right, especially within those sorts of kind of communities. The criminals elevated and celebrated is the saint. Saint George Floyd. It's crazy. Excusing the transgressions, such as appropriation of private property for the infliction of pain upon others that might otherwise be condemnation or rebuke. Finally, claiming the victim status elevates the claimant's psychological standing, defined as a subjective sense of legitimacy and entitlement to speak up. A person who has a psychological standing can reject or ignore any objections by non-victims to the unreasonableness of their demands. Now we have to pay all these people that I wasn't even related to, and the slave trade, like my family weren't slave traders. This is crazy. You have to pay anyways. Some unreasonable demand. In contrast to victim signals, people who do not publicly disclose their misfortune or disadvantage are less likely to reap the benefits of retributive compensation, moral immunity, deflection of blame, or psychological standing, and would therefore find it difficult to initiate resource transfers. The effectiveness of victim signaling as a resource transfer strategy follows the basic principles of signaling theory. Signaling theory posits the transmission of information from one individual, the sender, to another, can influence the behavior of the receiver. Signals can refer to physical or behavioral trait of the sender and are used by the senders to alter the behaviors of others to their own advantage, portraying oneself as a victim through frequent signaling of this status can therefore be one of many tactics people deploy in interpersonal relationships and exchange with larger entities to conceive non-victims to willingly provision alleged victim with resources. Importantly, and by the way, this is what they call a group guilt, right? The non-victims are meant to feel like guilty and then transfer those resources. It's always white liberal women, right? Is one of. It is not necessary for the victim signal to accurately represent a person's desires, circumstances, so it's possible that some signals intentionally and repeatedly convey their victim status as a manipulative strategy with explicit aim of altering the behavior of the receivers. Okay, so that we definitely saw on Twitter yesterday. To be perfectly clear, we are not suggesting that all or even most victim signals are inaccurate. Mainly undoubtedly represent actual occurrences and depict the victim's experience of fidelity. However, not all victim signals can be taken at face value. Every year, billions of dollars are lost from fraudulent claims made to insurance companies. Governmental, Doge, dude. What did Doge expose? Millions of dollars going to the virtuous victim groups, people, criminal organizations, people that are not even part of, like, countries thousands of miles away. In support of this assumption, two exploratory studies conducted on 300 U.S. adults recruited from Amazon Mechanical Turk, and with a national representative sample of 1,509 Canadians recruited via consumer survey panel, found that 34% to 24% of the respondents respectively reported that, quote, at some point in their lives they had pretended to be hurt or harmed physically or psychologically. I'm not pretending, guys. We've got the evidence. We've got the documents to increase the chances of getting something they wanted. And 79% of M-Turk respondents and 70% of Canadian respondents said they knew somebody else who had done so. Prior theory, research, and common experience support our position that victim signal can motivate observers to provide an alleged victim with resources of various kinds. A less obvious question is who is more likely to frequently emit this signal. One answer is people who really are victims. As mentioned earlier, communicating victim can have personally beneficial outcomes and initiate societal efforts to address the underlying causes of victimization. However, because people lie, it's entirely possible that there is a subset of the population both adept at and comfortable with using deception and manipulation to attain personal goals who routinely portray themselves as victims if they believe they can benefit in doing so. We test this possibility in our paper examining whether more frequent victim signals are also higher in Machiavellianism, narcissism, and sociopathy. A suite of personality traits known as the dark triad. Bum, bum, bum. While controlling for factors that may increase one's chance of experiencing various forms of disadvantage or mistreatment in Western societies: ethnicity, gender, social status, sexual orientation, disability. See, there you go. Look what's going on with autism, right? It's a disability. I know people who are parents of severely autistic people, and they'll tell you it's not a superpower. So notice the advertisement, and I saw Matushka Catherine Baker had posted. She's on with this. It's really cool. I want to show you. She was one of the ones that wrote an article or a chapter in the book with us, who lost her husband, the priest, and we wrote that book, Let No One Fear Death, about the Kuf and stuff like that, and approaching death. Let me just show you real quick. Okay, so it's Autism Acceptance Month. This came from this coloring page. So now they're making the kids do this. So they're brainwashing the kids in school. Shocker. Came home from school today. Interesting how the message has changed. Remember, it was Awareness Month. Now it's Acceptance. So, yes, people who suffer from mental disabilities or any disabilities have intrinsic value and equal value and dignity. That's what she's saying. I will always respect autistic people. I do not accept the systematic maiming of children for money. We do not accept autism. Don't accept it. It's a disability. So notice all of these things. Gender dysphoria, autism, whatever these like cognitive disabilities are, you can't call it disabilities anymore. Somebody got upset at me the other day because I was talking about Ozempic and people who are obese. I'm making fun of obese people because you can't actually say that obesity is unhealthy and that we shouldn't. Disabilities now are not disabilities. So this is all part of the virtuous victimhood, right? Oh, you have to accept it. It's a superpower. Right? Its next step in evolution is nonverbal autists, right? This is awful. And what is it championed by? The left. Because RFK, which is crazy, he was a liberal. He's a liberal Democrat. But he's got some stuff right when it comes to health. He's a great lawyer. And he's getting the poisons, exposing the frauds and the murder within the medical community. And what? Because Trump man, Orange man, bad. Now he's contaminated. Like, everybody hates him. It was like, that was your guy. Same with Musk, too. That was your guy. But he touched Trump, right? So these people are beyond like help, beyond a miracle from God. So RFK makes a comment, right? He's obviously saying severely, not high functioning autist, right? What does the left do? They go after and they attack RFK, who is their own guy. And what are they doing? They're basically, it's not a disability, it's a superpower. Notice the right and conservatives and Republicans are not saying this stuff. They're not saying it's the left. Because that's one of the things I want to show you, that who engages in this typically politically is not right, Republicans, Democrat. It's, not the right, conservatives, Republicans, it's the left, the liberals, right? You don't see, look, and I can critique conservatives and Republicans. I just don't think they're moral equivalents. But they don't engage, and for whatever the problems are, they don't engage in virtuous victimhood. That's a tactic of the left, and that displays a dark triad personality trait. And we just gave an example of that. Where were we? The emission of false, exaggerated victim signals to achieve their goals, in particular to people who possess dark triad, is because they will be encumbered by the bite of conscience. These people they don't care if they're lying, because there is no, for a sociopath, narcissist, there is no truth, right? It's all whatever I say it is. They're the Glaucons of this world. Individuals with dark triad personalities may also be better at mimicking actual victimhood because they practice the art of deception. The left is notorious for that. Thus, we hypothesize that individuals with dark triad personalities are more willing to deploy victim signaling as a part of their repertoire of resource extraction strategies across a wide range of situations compared with people who do not have these traits. But even if those who possess dark triad traits are shown to emit victim signals more frequently, this signal alone is not a foolproof method of extracting resources from others. In environments where many people claim victim status, observers who want to alleviate human suffering or rectify an injustice have to be selective about where to allocate their limited resources. It is also conceivable that many people who portray themselves as victims will appear undeserving of assistance or attention. A person who is paralyzed in a car accident after having robbed a bank is unlikely to receive as much support. We therefore hypothesize that the most effective means of pursuing a strategy of non-reciprocal resource strategy by signaling victimhood is to present the additional signal of being virtuous. I'm going to stop here for a second. Are you guys getting tired? You want to keep going? What? I need to get some lunch soon. Maybe we'll pick this back up because the next section is virtuous victimhood, and that would be a good place to stop right now. Noah, let me see 1 second. You have some questions? Yeah, Father Valentine came from Italy. He's under Metropolitan Nikolai, under the Patriarchal of Romania, and not under the bishop. Under Archbishop Nathaniel, the Romanian OCA. Yeah, there's definitely a U.S. State Department pushing Pentecostalism as big in Romania. What else? The patristic sense of the nous. Jeez. Well, epistemically, so we could talk about a kind of tripartiteness of the soul. The part of the soul that animates the body, the part of the soul, the intellect, the rational part, and then the deepest part of the soul, the nous, the noetic part, that pulls all those kind of together. And so epistemically, it's related to, we don't know God physically, right? God is not, prior to the incarnation, is not a visible, tangible thing. So that part of the soul does not grasp. We do not know intellectually the propositions. We know noetically. In which case then, since that's the focus, that the intellect can actually, and the rest of the soul and the body can actually experience and know God, right? So I would say it piggybacks. They're not known through that. They're known through the nous, and then the other aspects of the soul and body can experience God. That's how it relates epistemologically. It's sometimes considered a power. So They're like powers of the soul. You have one soul, you have a body, okay? But there's powers of the soul. There's a power to animate the body and its activity biologically. There's a power of the soul that is rational and intellectual and has discursive reasoning and stuff like that, can abstract. And there's a power of the soul, the highest and deepest power, which is the noetic power that speaks directly to God and experiences God. Thank you, Raziel. All right, it's 12:35 Mountain Standard Time. I think it is, unless you guys have any more questions or super chats. We should depart in peace. In the name of the Lord. Is Jim Bob still going? Jim Bob will go longer than me. He's still going. Well, he started 2 hours ago. He has 610. Oh, poor me. I only have 18. Poor me. You see, I am the disenfranchised. Here I am. I only have 23 concurrent viewers. It's so sad. And Jim Bob has 610. Yeah, go in and tell Jim Bob to come to... He really needs to come to MontaNIKA. And he has 2 good legs. That's right. That's why he gets more people than on his stream. You know what? Yeah. He's better looking. He's a better guitar player than me. He's got 2 legs. I mean, why wouldn't he have a bigger audience? I'm marginal. I'm owed some... There's somebody else that told me, like, yesterday they want me to, whatever. I cannot be clergy and go on to whatever podcast. I will go on Piers Morgan. I will go on Joe Rogan. I may even go on Jones if somebody wanted to. But obviously, as clergy, I can't go everywhere, right? I got, there's a standard for clergy, for crying out loud. There's people that really want me to have asked to... Should I would go on, just plug my course and just do epistemology? See, that's the thing about me. See how humble I am? I don't need to go on the whatever podcast. I'm just content living in my cell here with my icon. I don't need to become popular. I don't need to go on the whatever podcast on Joe Rogan. I'm just serving the Lord. I'm just content with that. Yeah, I don't get a lot of money for that, and my family's starving, and I've got a broken leg, and but has the cost of discipleship. It's either the kingdom or the world, right? Please send me money. All right, that is Virtuous, Victimhood, Dark Triad Traits 101 tactics right there. If you don't know, poor me. Still working at the college. Yes, praise God that they allowed me to... by the way, you want to see it? Cure College! Also, I work... university in Maine online. They've been great to me too. Carroll College has been great. After my injury, they allowed me to move the classes onto Zoom, So I really do am thankful. Like, they're a great college. I really love the faculty. We got a new president yesterday. I haven't met him, so that'll be interesting. Here is our faculty: Edward Gowinka, Dr. Eric Hall. He actually worked on Lonergan too. I really like Eric Hall. Hannah's great. Dr. Hannah Hempel. A lot of these people are like Notre Dame. Elvira, our chair, Dr. Mark Smiley, who's also a graduate alumni of Thomas Aquinas College, like myself, but he's a Notre Dame graduate, and then myself right there. Yeah. So I like it's a small department. I like everybody there. I'm just very blessed and grateful for them, and that they've been extremely supportive of Orthodoxy, and as I go through the injury as well. And so I just want to give a big shout out to them. Poor me. I can't even teach in person anymore. Oh, the pain's so bad. I don't know. I'm having yeah, praise God for all things. Okay, play myself out on the Mando. This is the Eastman. Only if I had more super chats and I could upgrade my mandolin. But I have to play on this lower version. Just warming up. Man, I'm messing up. So what you do is you start slow and then you speed it up. So we'll do. This is Off to California. Is this Off to California? Because there's another one that I get confused. I get the names confused. I can't remember what that song is. $4.99, thank you so much. What song is that? Is that one Off to California? Let's do it again. Let's go faster. So, what was the other one? Yeah, I like this one. I think this one's off to California. What about guitar? I have some songs I could play. You guys haven't heard me play guitar. So let's move. Jim Bob, I am calling you out on the dock. And yeah, this is good. I feel good. I feel a lot better if I had pour me another drink. Pour, get my Takamine out, won't it? Oh yeah, look at my Takamine, Jesus. Who's this? Who am I? Bound by one desire, I fell into a ring of fire. I fell for you just like a child. Oh. Does that sound out of tune? Ew, it sounds gross to me. Jim Bob. No. There we go. Ready? You guys will like this one. Where should I put the capo? How about down here? I'll stand in by my window on one cold and cloudy day when I saw that us come rolling to carry me, my mother, away. Will the circle be unbroken by and by, Lord, by and by? There's a better home waiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. I went back home lonely, for my mother, she was gone. All my family was crying, oh, so loud and alone. Will the circle be unbroken by and by, Lord, by and by? There's a better home awaiting in the sky, Lord, in the Undertaker, Undertaker, won't you please drive slow? 'Cause that body you are holding, oh, I hate to see her go. With a circle, everybody come on, the unbroken, my Lord, my. There's a better home awaiting in the sky, in the sky, in the sky. All right. You like that one? Good. Jesus songs. All right. More? What's the next song I want? It's a folk song. Peter, Paul, and Mary. If you miss that train I'm on, then you know that I am gone. You can hear the whistle blow 100 miles. 100 miles, 100 miles, 100 miles. You can hear the whistle blow 100 miles. Lord, I'm one, Lord, I'm two, Lord, I'm three, Lord, I'm four, Lord, I'm 500 miles away from home. I'm 500 miles, oh, 500 miles, Lord, I'm 500 miles away from home. Not a shirt on my back, not a penny to my name. Lord, I can't go on home that same way, that same way, that same way. Oh Lord, that same way. Lord, I can't go on home that same way. If you miss that train I'm on, then you know that I am gone. If the whistle blow 100 miles. I forgot the lyrics kind of on that, so I messed up. Oh, I remember. I'll have to pull the lyrics up for this one. But you'll like from the Dillards. There is a time. Also known as the Darling. Should I do the capo? There is a time for love and laughter. Days will pass like summer storm. The winter wind will follow after. But there is love, and love is warm. There's a time for us to wander. Time is young, and so are we. Woods are green over yonder. The path's new, and the world is free. There's a time for us to wander. The time is young, and so are we. The woods are green over yonder. The world is burning, the world is free. So do you roam in the springtime, and you'll find your loving summer sun. The frost will come and bring the harvest, and you can't sleep is done. There's a time for us to wander. Time is young, so are we. Woods are greener over yonder. Path is new, and the world is free. Path is new, and the world is free. La da 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 da. All right, what other? How about so I'm more new to mandolin. I've played guitar for a long time. Well, I went down to the St. James Infirmary. Wah, wah, wah. Who's that? Who is that? Why am I blanking on the name? Let's do that. St. James Infirmary. Folks, I grew here. Well, originally it's Cab Calloway, but I'm singing Louis Armstrong. Folks, I'm going down to St. James Infirmary to see my baby there. She's stretched out on a long table, so sweet and so so fair. Let her go, God bless her. Whatever she may be, she can search this world wide over, but she'll never find another sweetie da ba 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 like me. Oh, ba da da da. When I die, bury me in my straight breeches. Wah-ba-da-da-da-da-bow. Put a box and black order over my Stanson hat. Put a $20 gold piece in my watch chain, so you can tell to all the boys I know I died standing in pad. They give me 6 crap shooting powder barrels. Let a choir girl sing me a song. Put a right hot jazz band in the top of my head, so we can sing a raise a hallelujah as we go along. Folks, and now that you have heard my story, say, man, hand me over another shot of that booze. And if anyone should ask you, you tell them I got them St. Infirmary blue. Yeah, You like that one? Let him get down, let him go. All right. Send in those super chats. I'll keep playing for you. Lamont doing $4.99. How about Dark Hollow? See if I remember this song. Let's do a capo. What'll there be in some dark hollow where the sun don't ever shine, than to be in some big city with you, girl, on my mind? So blow your whistle, freight train, on down that track. I'm going away, I'm leaving today. Well, I'm going, but I ain't coming back. What'll be in some dark hollow where the sun don't ever shine, than to see you another man's darling, and know you never be mine. So blow your whistle, freight train, for down that track, 'cause I'm going away. Well, I'm leaving today. Well, I'm going, but I ain't coming back. All right, what's another? Yeah, I know this one. This is a Doc Watson. Man, I haven't played for... I've been injured. I haven't played for...
What's the temp?
Temperature is 70 degrees today. It's not
I
awesome.
mean, right now.
It says 70 degrees right now.
Oh. I'll turn on the air soon.
Yeah. Why am I blanking on the name of the song? Shady Grove. Now I can play this also on, and I'll play it on the mandolin. I'll play I'll play it once on I'll play it on guitar, and then I'll move to the mando. Beaches in the summertime, apples in the fall. If I can't have the girl I want, none at all. Shady grove, my little love. Shady grove, I say. Shady grove, my little love. Time to go away. Wish I had a banjo string made of golden twine. Every tune I played on it, I wish that girl was mine. Shady Grove, my little love, Shady Grove, I say, Shady Grove, my little love, I'm bound to go away. Wish I had a needle and thread as fine as I could sew that girl to my side and away we would go. Shady Grove, my little love, Shady Grove, I say, Shady Grove, my little love, come away. Some come here to fiddle and dance, some come here to tarry, some come here to fiddle and dance, I came here to marry. Shady Grove, my little love, Shady Grove, I say, Shady Grove, my little love, I'm bound to go away. Alright, now on the mandolin, sounds a little bit different. And I'll probably do it in a different key for you. Warming up. See how this sounds different at all. Peaches in the summertime, apples in the fall. If I can have that girl I want, or don't want none at all. Shady Grove, my little love, Shady Grove, I say, Shady Grove, my little love, I'm bound to go away. Wish I had a banjo string, a fine flame of twine. Every tune I played on it, I wish that girl was mine. Shady Grove, my little love, Shady Grove, I say, Shady Grove, my little love, I'm bound to go away. See, that sounds different. I'm not gonna. Wish I had a needle and thread, fine as I could sew that girl to my side and away we would go. Shady Grove, my little love, Shady Grove, I say, Shady Grove, my little love, I'm bound to go away. Some come here to fiddle and dance, some come here to tarry, some come here to fiddle and dance, I came here to marry. Shady Grove, my little love, Shady Grove, I say, Shady Grove, my little love, bound to go away. I'm trying to think of other songs I know. Maybe I should save them. I'm giving you too much for too little. I want to thank all of you for a wonderful stream and time together, for the prayers. It is fun playing with you guys, playing the songs, and mosey on over to Jim Bob if he's still over there. Let's see. He's still going. Oh, you know what? There's another song that's really cool too. Maybe I'll give you a little foretaste. I always like this. It's kind of a cool little blues lick right here. Alright, I gotta get the lyrics. It's called Deep Ellum Blues. Have you ever heard this? Why can't I spell? Oh, yeah. If you go down Deep Ellum, put your money in your shoes. To the women of Deep Ellum, they give you deep and blue. Oh, sweet mama, your daddy's got them Deep Ellum blues. Once had a girlfriend, she meant the world to me. She went down to Deep Ellum, and now she ain't used to be. Ow, 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 oh, sweet Ellum. Your daddy's got them Deep Ellum blues. This line's really cool. Well, I once knew a preacher, preached the Bible through and through, till he went down to Deep Ellum. Oh, and his preaching days are through. Oh, oh, my, oh, sweet mama, and your daddy's got them Deep Ellum blues. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We'll end with that. Oh, Pastor Randy Ball's preaching days are through because he went down to Deep Ellum blues. So sad. Another L for Protestantism. Yeah! Look out! Jim Bob's a better guitar player than me, I think. But, yeah, dueling guitars. That'd be fun. And we can't play all the songs. God bless you guys. Thank you for an awesome stream. Thank you for all the super chats. Thank you for listening to my ridiculous music and my ridiculous thoughts. And may the Lord God keep you. Until next time, God bless and give you good strength. Amen.